how many people have given up on $1 million idea, at the very early stages? One, because they didn't commit to multiple outcomes. Two, because they wanted it to be actionable on Monday. They're like, this is such a great idea. You put it into place. By Wednesday, you're looking for other $1 million ideas because you didn't know how to persevere, and you also weren't tenacious.
Or three, because they underestimated the resources, the time, the money, the effort, and the human resource that would be necessary in order to get it done. So sometimes you just need to give your idea more time because you didn't get all the resources that you needed to make $1 million.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. And look who's back. After so many weeks, we've got Lacey back here in the studio, shifting gears. We've been doing a whole run of interviews, and I hope that everybody has loved the interviews. And we're going to still continue to bring you some other interviews, but people were asking, where's Lacey? And so we decided to jump in with you and get your insights in one of these bite-sized editions of None of Your Business. Today I want to talk about how $1 million ideas are never actionable on Monday. And this is one of our big principles that we teach, that we live by, that we believe. But here's the thing, everybody is looking for that $1 million idea. And, they take courses, they, scroll through Facebook, they're looking for that $1 million idea, and they go to workshops and they do things, they talk to people, and they get this idea, and they are disappointed because it might be actually $1 million idea, but they just can't put it into action immediately. And so I just want to walk through a couple thoughts, get your input on sort of how we can get from, this is $1 million idea to actually $1 million implementation. The first is to understand that they're usually not actionable. I would say never are they actionable on Monday.
Absolutely not. And actually, the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of times they are $1 million ideas, and they're not actionable because they're not actually a good fit for your ideal client target market. So there's a huge barrier that happens when you take something that's worked for somebody else, or you take a course that has generated $1 million for another person, and then you start to begin to try and implement it into a market that it's not right for.
Sure. Well, let's say that it was right for it. It still is not actionable on Monday. And so let's give a couple steps of how you could get it into action. The first is to think deeply and to act slowly. So many times we do the reverse. We act quickly with zero thinking, and we haven't really even given any thought. One of the things that we teach is that successful people actually dedicate time in their calendars to think. So you always have to take the time to have thought through the process deeply. And that's why you might not be able to put it into action on Monday. You just heard this over the weekend. You might not be ready to put it in place on Monday. The next one is to collaborate and if you have holes in the plan. So sometimes people will tell you a plan, but you just don't have the human resource or the connection. So great ideas usually actually do require resources. I mean, even if I was the inventor of the Pool Noodle,
right,
and I told you about it, and I was like, it's like a straw, but it's in the pool. It's like a macaroni, and people would float on it. We could make $1 million on it. I still don't know how to make it.
Right.
There's a lot of things that I need a lot of collaboration to turn my Pool Noodle idea into $1 million.
Well, people always think when they think resources, they automatically default to money. Like, I'm going to need money to do this idea. And they fail to plan for how much time it's going to take, the investigation that they're going to do in order to be able to launch this idea, the people that they're going to need to put in place in order to make it happen, make it executable, and maybe the systems that they're going to need to have in order to actually grow and scale it. To your point before about acting too quickly, a lot of people do things so fast and they don't have systems in place that will allow the scalability of the million idea anyway, and then things begin to collapse. So when it comes to resources and a plan, man, you better consider all of the types of resources that you're going to have to get in front of or get in order to make this thing happen.
Well, and then that would bring us to point number 3, which is build infrastructure and then grow. Like you were saying, maybe I have the idea, and then maybe I even figure out like I how to make my pool noodles, but I don't have the equipment. I don't have a place to make it. I don't have the ability to source it. So the rule always is on your $1 million idea is we need to think deeply, act slowly, collaborate. We get an idea of what I'm going to need. Then I actually build the infrastructure before I start growing. Yeah. And I think this applies to a lot of people maybe that have $1 million idea and they've taken it to 200,000.
Yeah.
Well, you might be missing infrastructure. And so you build the infrastructure first. So considering what types of things you might need in order to fulfill on that.
It makes me think of so many times on Shark Tank, how many people have gotten up there and said, I actually have a great product and I have so many orders I just can't fulfill. Why? That's because they didn't have the infrastructure in order to fulfill the orders to grow. So you create this pool noodle, you put it out there into the universe, and all of a sudden 100,000 people want it. And not only do you not know how to source it, where to get it made, but now you may not even know how to distribute it.
Now you're destroying your own business.
Now you're destroying your own business because you're destroying the reputation of the business before you even get to launch it.
I remember I ordered a pizza oven for Tristan on his birthday, and I think we got it like 6 months later.
Yeah.
I mean, so you don't feel very good about that.
I would not order a pizza oven from them again. Absolutely not.
They can't obviously figure that out.
And I was going to say, this doesn't just happen with products. This also happens with service.
Right.
A lot of times people have services that are phenomenal, that can help a lot of people. And unfortunately, if you don't have the time, money, and human resource to help you service the amount of people that want it, your business could be on the line, and so can your reputation.
I remember when I was in practice in Costa Rica, a lot of my friends were a part of this thing, and it was called, I think, the waitlist practice. Our good friend Steve Tullius sells a product called waitlist workshops. And I was a lot of my friends were involved in this waiting list practice, and I had a wait list, and it was oftentimes up to 30 days before somebody could get in to see me.
Right.
Well, that's a giant negative.
Yes.
Right. That's a giant negative. And people are like, whoa. And so I called my friends and I was like, say, you're in the waiting list group, right? What do you do when you've achieved it?
Right.
And they were like, oh, I never thought about that. And I got to tell you, that's where that build infrastructure then grow comes from, is because I didn't have the infrastructure to support the volume.
Right.
But that is a negative. I want people to understand. Some people are like, I don't want to go to you. I'll go to your competitor because there's such a long wait to get in. It's not worth it for me just to wait around, and when I can go to someone else that might be able to deliver a similar service. So in services and products, this applies.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that, though, because it reminds me of, I bought this, what's called the Our Place pan. I think that's what it's called. And you saw it all over Facebook, and they kept saying, this is the waitlist pan. Everybody's waiting to get this pan. It's sold out X amount of times. And it was a brilliant marketing strategy, but they weren't like the pizza oven. You signed up, you purchased it, and it was only like a month delay. 6 months is too long. So there is a fine line between creating desire for your product or service and then having it go too far beyond where people say, I don't want this anymore.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Number 4 is to trust the process. So once you start out, you trust that this is going to work. If you honestly think it was $1 million idea and you've actually laid the foundation, then you trust that this is going to play out. Which though brings us to number 5 is, if you have that understanding, you must commit to the first step, and you must also commit to multiple outcomes, right? So many times $1 million idea gets shelved because the initial outcome wasn't what you thought it was supposed to be. Not necessarily that it actually ruined the project. You just thought it was going to go a certain way, and when it didn't go that way, you had no plan. And so you're like, oh, it's not going the way I thought, it's over. Right? So you must commit to multiple outcomes. This will help you to not say, well, here's what we're going to do is we're going to launch our thing on social media. We're going to put some ads out, and then 100 people are going to buy it. Well, maybe only 10 people buy it.
Right.
So a lot of people are like, well, that was a total loss.
Yeah. Oh, people must not like it. Right.
But it might be your ad copy. It might be your landing pages, your sales pages.
The offer
there's a lot
itself.
of reasons. So you must commit to multiple outcomes. Then number 6 is what you were saying. Make sure that you're selling to the right people. You have $1 million idea and you sell it to the wrong people, then it still is $1 million idea, but it's not going to generate $1 million.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important, is that market consideration. And sometimes it's what do they call it? Market to message mismatch. And you're putting it out there in front of the wrong demographic. So sometimes all it takes is a tweak in the ad, a tweak in the offer, or a tweak in the target audience that you're going after. And then that can take what looked like not so good idea in one of those outcomes to $1 million idea and a different outcome.
And we talk a lot about pre-selling or testing your idea. So if you actually think you have $1 million idea, and it's not exposing any trade secrets, you could go to social media or to a Facebook group, and say, hey, if I offered this, would there be any interest?
Right.
And people could say, hand raise moment, and they might indicate that they would be into that. Last point is to persevere and to be tenacious. How many people have given up on $1 million idea, at the very early stages? 1, because they didn't commit to multiple outcomes. 2, because they wanted it to be actionable on Monday. They're like, this is such a great idea. You put it into place. By Wednesday, you're looking for other $1 million ideas because you didn't know how to persevere, and you also weren't tenacious.
Or 3, because they underestimated the resources, the time, the money, the effort, and the human resource that would be necessary in order to get it done. So sometimes you just need to give your idea more time because you didn't get all the resources that you needed to make $1 million.
Well, I hope a lot of our listeners have $1 million idea. If you have $1 million idea and you need help with that, reach out to us. We'd be happy to see if we could give you any assistance. Join Black Diamond Club. Go to www.blackdiamondclub.com. There you'll find lots of people who have $1 million ideas, who are working on their ideas, and who are receiving guidance, not just from us, but from our Black Diamond Club coaches and all of our relational capital that we bring into Black Diamond Club to work with them, to help them to develop those ideas, get those ideas to market, and actually have $1 million of business. That'll truly revolutionize and change your life, but you got to follow these steps and be committed to getting there. Anything else to add?
Nope.
All right, everybody, we'll be back again next week with a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and tell your friends about us. We'll see you next week.